What is going on, everybody? My name is Michael Music, and it is a pleasure to have you on board watching this. So, I have been reading Think and Grow Rich. We're almost done the book at this point, and today we are on the six major fears. And this fear, we're going to talk about the fear of ill health. So, it's interesting that we're talking about this fear because we just recently overcame a pandemic, and essentially what what kind of defined the borders of the pandemic, right? If you really think about this, it was the fear that was installed. It was what was the date? It was either February or March of 2020. All the news stations are blasting this fear, and then it ended the day that we stopped listening to this fear so much on the news and we started focusing on the war of Ukraine. So understand that we're going to be diving into a fear that literally has shut down the world for um what was it, 2 years, 2.5 years. So keep that in mind. That stuff's, I think it was 2 years if I'm not mistaken, but like that, like, just keep in mind, like, this is a big fear. Even though it's just a ghost, as we explained, this fear is still just as deadly as anything else. So we're going to dive into the fear of ill health, and I will chime in when I do. So this is on page 342 if you got at least the deluxe version. All right, the fear of ill health. This fear may be traced to both physical and social heredity. It is closely associated as to its origin with the causes of fear of old age and the fear of death, because it leads one closely to the border of terrible worlds, of which man knows not, but concerning which he has been taught some discomforting stories. The opinion is somewhat general, also, that certain unethical people engaged in the business of selling health have had not a little to do with keeping alive the fear of ill health. What does that mean? When Napoleon Hill says, the opinion is somewhat general, also, that certain unethical people engaged in the business of selling health have had not a little to do with keeping alive the fear of ill health. Okay, we're gonna dive into something controversial, but it's the truth. We gotta discuss it. So think about all these pharmaceutical companies and think about how they make a profit, right? They make a profit by actually selling patients medicine, convincing them, hey, you're sick, you need our medicine. And if you don't take our medicine because you get healthy, then we lose customers. So I actually had the pleasure of speaking to a gentleman who used to own his own pharmaceutical like practice. Like, it wasn't like a CVS or a Rite Aid, but it was a local pharmaceutical company, kind of like the old school style. And he was selling his patients all this medicine, and he realized, like, damn, they're getting worse and worse from these pills that I'm giving them. And he made it his practice to just kind of stop selling medicine altogether and focus more so on just helping them actually get healthy. And so it's a really big scam that's in America today. This idea of selling all these pills. Like, I remember there was the opioid crisis, right? They were selling legal heroin, and it was like even my brother, he knows people that so to speak are street pharmacists, and they actually get prescriptions from their doctors. So they're getting prescriptions from their doctors just so that they can sell drugs on their streets. So it's actually a pretty wild world, the pharmaceutical world that we live in. And these people that sell you these drugs, they know how to keep the fear of ill health alive simply because they got to make a profit themselves. So keep that in mind. It's interesting. It's an interesting subject. Anyways, Okay. In the main, man fears ill health because of the terrible pictures which have been planted in his mind of what may happen if death should overtake him. He also fears it because of the economic toll which it may claim. Okay, yeah, so understand this. This at least happened to me personally. I used to go to CCD, which was like Catholic school, to teach you religion, right? And as a young kid, I I remember my teachers were planting in me. I was just a young kid with like an open mind, right? I didn't everything that they were saying was going right into my subconscious mind and like truly programming me. And they were saying, yeah, like there's people that believe like if you sin and once you die, you are going to hell. They planted that in the seeds of the kids in our Catholic school. Like how could you possibly say that, right? So that's why this fear is so interested and so dramatic because it's closely related to the fear of death. You think when you're afraid of getting sick, you're gonna die, and then this seed that someone planted a way while back that oh my god, like you cursed, you're going straight to hell. So it's like it's this like layer of fears, and it's like oh my god, you don't want to spend eternity in hell. So it's a bunch of BS that was planted in our minds from way back when that really keeps this fear going. And just to confirm, I do not believe none of that stuff that they say that if you curse, if you cheat on a test or do a little sin that you're going to hell. I absolutely have discovered for myself that that is full on BS. But I won't go there right now. Okay. A reputable physician estimated that 75% of all people who visit physicians for professional service are suffering with hypochondria or imaginary illness. It has been shown most convincingly that the fear of disease, even where there is not the slightest cause for fear, often produces the physical symptoms of the disease feared. Okay, this is talking about the just the placebo effect. Like you think you're sick, you're like you gotta realize like essentially the body is the instrument of the mind. So if you are going to the doctor with an imaginary disease, you're the way that you're thinking, the way that your thoughts they translate to your feelings, which will translate to a physical altercation of your body, and your body will literally show symptoms of that made up disease that you are thinking. So that's how powerful the placebo effect is. I remember hearing my mentor say that the brain is the most powerful drug producing chemical compound ever, right? Like it can produce chemicals stronger than morphine, stronger than what they can give you at the doctor's office. That's for sure, right? Like that's just your brain can literally do that. So what these people are doing is they're creating the placebo effect, going to the doctor's office, making up like I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick. It's their thoughts translates to their feelings. They feel sick, and next thing you know, their feelings translates to their physical body, which is literally symptoms, whatever that sickness may be. Okay, now page 343. Powerful and mighty is the human mind. It either builds or it destroys. Okay, now playing upon this common weakness of fear of ill health, dispensers of patent medicines have reaped fortunes. This form of imposition upon credulous humanity became so prevalent some 20 years ago that the Collier's Weekly magazine conducted a bitter campaign against some of the worst offenders in the patent medicine business. So going back to that story I was just saying about how the pharmaceuticals, they're corrupt. So and they will take advantage of this fear of ill health. During the flu epidemic, which broke out during the World War, the mayor of New York City took drastic steps to check the damage which people were doing themselves through their inherent fear of ill health. He called in the newspaper men and said to them, "Gentlemen, I feel it necessary to ask you not to publish any scare headlines concerning the flu epidemic. Unless you cooperate with me, we will have a situation which we cannot control. The newspapers quit publishing stories about the flu, and within 1 month, the epidemic had become successfully checked. That's right in line with COVID, right? Like, you know, Joe Biden's over here saying, "Oh, we stopped COVID," and like really, all you did was kind of stop talking about COVID. You stopped talking about COVID on the news 24/7. We switched to the new war, right? And now we're focusing on the recession. So all these news outlets are just transferring the fears that they're sending out, right? So you didn't stop COVID, but you finally like took away the thought of COVID being such a big issue right now. That's where we're at. Okay, where are we? But that also is right in line with the story of the flu epidemic. When it was back in New York City, they stopped posting anything about the flu in the newspapers, and all of a sudden the numbers started dropping. Through a series of experiments conducted some years ago, it was proved that people may be made ill by suggestion. We conducted this experiment by causing 3 acquaintances to visit the victims, each of whom asked the question, "What ails you? You look terribly ill." Okay, so this is an experiment Napoleon Hill is doing. The first questionnaire usually provoked a grin and a nonchalant, "Oh, nothing, I'm all right," from the victim. The second questionnaire usually was answered with the statement, "I don't know exactly, but I do feel badly." The third questionnaire was usually met with the frank admission that the victim was actually feeling ill. Okay, so what they're doing is they are doing 3 different controlled experiments, and one person is like going up to a door, I'm sure saying something, and the person probably responds, feels fine. Second person is like, "Oh my God," like, they knock on the door, like, "What's wrong with you? Like, you look ill." And like, the first thing when you ask yourself when someone says that is, "Am I okay? Am I ill?" And then you start looking for ways that you could feel ill, and you may actually trick yourself into feeling ill. So that's what the experiment is, just proving the power of what you think about, you literally bring about in terms of the fear of illness. So Napoleon Hill says on page 344, try this on an acquaintance if you doubt that it will make him uncomfortable, but do not carry the experiment too far. There is a certain religious sect whose members take vengeance upon their enemies by the hexing method. They call it placing a spell on the victim. There's overwhelming evidence that disease sometimes begins in the form of negative thought impulse. Such an impulse may be passed from one mind to another by suggestion or created by an individual in his own mind. A man who was blessed with more wisdom than this incident might indicate once said, "When anyone asks me how I feel, I always want to answer by knocking him down." Doctors send patients into new climates for their health because a change of mental attitude is necessary. The seed of fear of ill health lives in every human mind. Worry, fear, discouragement, disappointment in love and business affairs causes the seed to germinate and grow. The recent business depression kept the doctors on the run because every form of negative thinking may cause ill health. Okay, so what does that mean? Why does he say that every form of negative thinking may cause ill health? All right, let's step back for a moment. So it's really like going back to the chapter on the subconscious mind. Remember, we discussed the 7 major positive emotions and the 7 major negative emotions. So I don't have a chart to draw this for you, but I want you to imagine a stick figure, right? And there's like a line through the top circle, and then there's the conscious on top and the subconscious on the bottom, right? So the negative emotions, let's just focus on that for a second, is in the subconscious mind, which is like the bottom half of this circle. So it starts with your negative thoughts that translate to your negative emotions. I can't like imagine my face like so like this like line. So like we're gonna just point to my chin is your negative emotions. And feeling, what is feeling? Feeling is a conscious awareness of the vibration that you're in. When you're feeling an emotion, you're actually in that state of a vibration, right? So when you're feeling a negative emotion like fear, doubt, or worry, your body is literally going to vibrate in this level of fear, doubt, and worry. And what I'm trying to say is that this is how every negative form of thinking may cause ill health, because finally what's in your subconscious mind is dictating the vibratory state that you're in, is dictating the ill health that you experience in the physical world. So it's just to say that your thoughts really do handle everything, right? And keep in mind just what you're listening to on the news and what they're really planting in your minds. They're planting negativity, seeds of fear, doubt, worry, murder everywhere, like all this negative stuff, just so that you can actually start to feel it yourself and it literally becomes your reality. Okay, anyways, a man who was blessed with more wisdom than this incident may indicate once said, when anyone asks me how I feel, I always want to answer by knocking them down. Doctors, okay, fast forward. I'm going to go to the bottom paragraph. The recent business depression kept the doctors on the run because every form of negative thinking may cause ill health. Disappointments in business and in love stand at the head of the list of causes of fear of ill health. A young man suffered a disappointment in love, which sent him to a hospital. For months, he hovered between life and death. A specialist in suggestive therapeutics was called in. The specialist changed nurses, placing him in charge of the very charming young woman who began, by prearrangement with the doctor, to make love to him the first day of her arrival on the job. Within 3 weeks, the patient was discharged from the hospital, still suffering, but with an entirely different malady. He was in love again. The remedy was a hoax, but the patient and the nurse were later married. Both are in good health at the time of this writing. That's crazy. So there is literally a person who was on the brink of death from just ill health, right? The doctor sent a nurse to make love to that person, and they obviously formed a relationship and whatnot, but that guy got healthy just from that. And the whole remedy or the cure to his disease was all a hoax, but doesn't matter because he still got better. So that's just a great example of how powerful just switching one's thinking is. Okay, now we're gonna discuss the symptoms of the fear of ill health. The symptoms of this almost universal fear are: one, autosuggestion, the habit of negative use of self suggestion by looking for and expecting to find the symptoms of all kinds of disease, quote, enjoying imaginary illness and speaking of it as being real. The habit of trying all fads and isms recommended by others as having therapeutic value. Talking to others of operations, accidents, and other forms of illness. Experimenting with diets, physical exercise, reducing systems without professional guidance. Trying home remedies, patent medicines, and quack remedies. So that is when you're using autosuggestion in the negative way. That is a symptom of the fear of ill health. Number two, the hypochondria. This is the habit of talking of illness, concentrating the mind upon disease and expecting its appearance until a nervous break occurs. Nothing that comes in bottles can cure this condition. It is brought on by negative thinking, and nothing but positive thought can affect a cure. Okay, let's pause there. Hypochondria, habit of talking illness, right? What was that period? From 2020, from February 20, what was it? It was March 14th ish, 2020 to whenever it ended in 2022, like that 2-year-ish period, what was everyone talking about? What was all the news talking about? What was everything discussing, right? It was almost like I, I don't know if you had this, but I remember my dad. He was like, he got sick. He just made up an illness, right? Was not sick at all, but thought that he got sick because some people around him were sick. And he literally started experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, even though he didn't have it. It was just all in his head. So the hypochondria symptom, that I mean, that's an example right there. And it's just like if you're going to talk about disease and you're assuming that disease is all around you, then like you just have to realize that you're literally bringing it upon yourself. Okay, still on the hypochondria, it's a medical term for imaginary disease, is said to do as much damage on occasion as the disease one fears it might do. Most so-called cases of nerves come from imaginary illness. Remember, the brain is the most powerful drug chemical laboratory station, whatever you want to call it, in the world. Your brain, it can produce, don't hold me on this. I heard this from my mentor, but apparently the brain can produce more morphine than the actual drug itself, right? Like you can get more high on the natural chemicals in your brain than any other outside chemical. And so this like whole placebo effect, you can truly use this, especially in the like what he's saying here, the fear of ill health, in the negative way, and actually placebo yourself so bad that you really do take on real life symptoms of the disease that you've been worrying about. Okay, now we're on exercise. So the fear of ill health often interferes with proper physical exercise and results in overweight by causing one to avoid outdoor life. So, okay. So I don't worry about exercise. I exercise every day, but let me ask you, does the fear of getting sick ever get in the way of you working out, right? Okay, now susceptibility. Fear of ill health breaks down nature's body resistance and creates a favorable condition for any form of disease one may contact. Okay, so fear of ill health breaks down nature's body resistance and creates a favorable condition for any form of disease one may contact. The fear of ill health often is related to the fear of poverty, especially in the case of the hypochondriac, who constantly worries about the possibility of having to pay doctor's bills, hospital bills, etc. This type of person spends much time preparing for sickness, talking about death, saving money for cemetery lots, and burial expenses, etc. Okay, so he's saying that susceptibility is literally all your energy is going for preparing for your doomsday. That's what he's saying. Next is self-coddling, the habit of making a bid for sympathy using imaginary illness as the lure. People often resort to this trick to avoid work. The habit of feigning illness to cover plain laziness or to serve as an alibi for lack of ambition. Go back to, I guess, when you were a kid. Have you ever like faked being sick so much that you actually, because you just didn't want to go to school that day? There was a test or something that you didn't want to go to school. I feel like most of us have been there at least once, and we have faked this sickness so well to our parents to convince them that to let us to stay home that we actually, really put on this persona so realistic that we felt sick, and we actually convinced ourselves that we were sick. So we did that as children simply just because we were too lazy to go to school that day, or we didn't have enough ambition to do the work that we needed to do. And keep that in mind in your adult life if you're still carrying that like old story with you, because it remember that has served you in the past. It got you a day off of school, but is that necessarily serving you in the future now that you're an adult and you're kind of in the workforce, providing value and service to the world? Okay, last is intemperance, the habit of using alcohol or narcotics to destroy pain such as headaches, neuralgia, etc., instead of eliminating the cause. The habit of reading about illness and worrying over the possibility of being stricken by it. The habit of reading patent medicine advertisements. Okay, so this is touchy, but we got to go there. It's intemperance is the habit of using alcohol or narcotics to destroy pain such as headaches and whatever the symptoms may be. So when you got depression, right? They typically give you a pill, and they're curing the effect of the depression. They're curing, like, you're depressed and you're going to take a pill so that your your serotonin levels rise again, right? Because when you're depressed, depression is the cause, the effect is lower serotonin levels, and they're going to give you a pill to take so that you can raise your serotonin levels up. That is curing the effect, right? Taking these depression pills. But we're not curing the cause. And what did Napoleon Hill say the cause was? The cause was your negative thinking. So we have to really attack the root of the problem. This book, Think and Grow Rich, is called Think and Grow Rich for a reason, because it's so important, the idea of actually thinking. So maybe another video I'll talk more on depression, because this is a touchy subject. But I will say that the pharmaceutical business thrives off the people that are depressed. They'll gladly give you a pill, and they'll gladly have you come back month after month after month, re-upping your supply of pills, because you're paying them still, but you're not fixing the cause of your depression, which is, as stated by Napoleon Hill, your negative thinking. So that's my thoughts on the fear of ill health. That's we're going to wrap it up for today. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the fear of loss of love. And soon we'll get through the 6 major fears. This was number 3 of 6. And after that, we're going to really evaluate ourselves with some self-analysis, some powerful questions. So I want to thank you guys for watching. While we're still here, drop one thing you learned, one thing you liked about the fear of ill health, and what you plan to do with this. Something I wanted to say earlier on as I was reading this is this quote. It was from The Science of Getting Rich. It was written by Wallace C. Wattles, right? And Wallace C. Wattles said in that book somewhere that the truth is that there is no disease, right? And how can you make such a bold statement like that? So I really want to hear your thoughts on that statement. Like, what does that mean? The truth is there really is no disease. And I know he says some other lines behind it, but do you believe that could it be possible that there is no disease in this world? It's really just what we make up in our minds. Like, it starts with our thinking, right? So let's say COVID's absolutely everywhere, right? Can you actually not get it if you have no fear, no worry, no doubt about this virus at all, right? Like, is that a possibility to absolutely evade COVID? I know for one thing, when I got COVID, I told it that, like, okay, if you're in my body, like, you're gonna cooperate with me and go under my rules. And so when I had COVID, I felt totally fine, right? Like, it did not affect me really bad at all in the slightest. And so I'm curious to say, like, is there really any disease at all? Or is it just, like, what they're putting out there in the news just to make you believe it, and so that you can make the economy go around, really pump up the pharmaceutical business and help them out. So this is some controversial stuff, but I love to talk about it because, we don't really need these medical pills for everything. We're attacking the effects, but not the cause. And that's what this book is really exposing the truth of. So that was the fear of ill health. Let me know below whether you agree with the statement that there is diseases out there, and or if the truth is that there is no disease. I want to hear what you guys think about that, because that's something I haven't become 100% sure about. But it would be dope, like if I was 100% sure that there was no disease in this world and that I can just be absolutely immune with the right mindset, then man, that would be a superpower. But also let me know if I just sound crazy in this video and I'm kind of going off the rails with this. Um, okay, well, if there's not any last questions, I'm gonna wrap it up. Peace out, Facebook. Have a good one, everybody. And YouTube, as I say, until we meet again in time and space, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you guys at the next event.